welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the ancient but honestly incredibly practical 30 teachings of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. These teachings, they are quite literally a survival guide for navigating modern life's relentless ups and downs. Whether you're staring down a massive crisis right now or you're just exhausted by the daily grind, this text holds some seriously profound wisdom that's been guiding people for centuries. So, let's get into it. Now, if you've ever felt completely stuck or just totally overwhelmed by life's battles, maybe unsure of your next move, trust me, you are definitely not alone. The timeless wisdom we're about to decode is going to become a massive source of strength for you. Because the teachings of the Gita, they aren't just some abstract pie-in-the-sky philosophy. No, they're a direct, no-nonsense manual for success, inner peace, and real resilience. To make this super digestible, we've distilled these 30 teachings into 4 actionable pillars. First, the value of time. Second, mastering the unruly mind. Third, understanding duty and justice. And finally, the unavoidable law of karma. All right, let's jump straight into Pillar 1, value of time. The source text firmly stresses a pretty bold concept. Your time is literally your life. And it's fascinating how it frames reality, teaching that the past and the future, they actually have zero true physical existence. They only exist inside your intellect. So if you're constantly agonizing over tomorrow or kicking yourself over yesterday, you're literally living in an illusion. The text tells us that true happiness and real success are only found by anchoring yourself strictly in the present moment. You gotta live fully in your today without carrying that heavy, exhausting burden of worry. And to truly value that time, the text points out 3 major time wasters we absolutely have to eliminate. First off, fearing the inevitable, like death. It's just the law of nature, and fearing it completely paralyzes us from actually living today. Second, we must maintain our courage through hard times. The text reminds us, hey, no matter how brutal things get, if you don't lose your courage, you will eventually win out. And third, you have to aggressively eradicate laziness. A lazy person simply cannot build a good life. They end up losing what they already have, and they definitely fail to achieve what they want. Moving right along, let's hit Pillar 2, mastering the unruly mind. So as we journey inward to conquer our own minds, it's super interesting to see where the text says this mastery actually begins. Ready for it? Your diet. Yeah, the teachings directly connect what we physically consume to our thoughts. It states that a balanced sattvic diet, which means pure and wholesome food, directly creates a peaceful, balanced, and sattvic mind. If we want our intellect and our behavior to be on point, it literally starts with what we're putting on our plates every single day. But as we all know, the mind is absolutely full of traps. The teachings warn us to avoid extremes. Don't sleep too much, but don't sleep too little either. Same goes for eating. It also warns against what it calls the true slavery of the mind. I mean, think about it. How many times have we sabotaged our health goals just because we couldn't say no to our taste buds? That's slavery to the tongue. Finally, uncontrolled anger is a massive trap. The Gita notes that an angry person just drives away their friends and torches whatever peace they had left. Bottom line? If you want happiness, you've got to stop being a hostage to these impulses. To really hammer home how the mind tortures us, the text offers this brilliant story, the burning palace parable. Imagine a guy who invests his entire life savings into building this magnificent, sprawling palace. One day, he comes home to find the whole thing engulfed in flames. He is so devastated he wants to throw himself into the fire, wailing that his life is over. But then, a neighbor runs up and says, "Wait, your son actually sold this palace to someone else yesterday." Instantly, the man's grief just vanishes. Poof, gone. He even starts praising his son for making a killer deal right in the nick of time. But then, his son arrives and says, "Actually, Dad, the buyer backed out. The deal fell through." And instantly, the man drops to his knees, crying in agony all over again. So what's the real takeaway here? The fire didn't cause the man's suffering. His attachment did. Accepting any object, person, or relationship as entirely yours just wraps you in this blindfold of painful attachment. The Gita teaches that this very attachment is the root of pretty much all our sorrows. Shattering that expectation and accepting that nothing is permanently yours, that is the only real path to success and genuine, unshakable inner peace. And even in your absolute darkest moments, when everything just feels entirely unfair, the text offers this incredibly profound anchor. It asks you to trust that whatever is happening right now, or whatever happens in the future, is ultimately unfolding for your own good. When we look back on our lives, we usually realize that our biggest, most painful setbacks were actually just redirecting us away from much worse outcomes, right? Adopting this mindset is like a superpower. It keeps your mind totally balanced and resilient. Which brings us to pillar 3, understanding duty and justice. Okay, so once you've got a handle on your mind, how do you actually interact with the rest of the world? The text introduces this fascinating concept called swadharma. Basically, this translates to your own unique talent and personal duty. Look, we are constantly tempted to just do what the whole crowd is doing, right? To chase the latest trend because it feels safe and comfortable. But the Gita hits us with a harsh truth. If you just do what the crowd does, you're going to get completely lost in that crowd. Instead, the text urges us to figure out the specific, righteous path that is uniquely meant for us. Now, when it comes to navigating the people on that path, the Gita advises some stark realism. First, do not trust blindly. Just don't do it. Second, bad people aren't going to suddenly turn good no matter how wonderfully you treat them. The text actually points to examples of villains who still betrayed the very people who saved their lives. Third, the folks who talk a big game during the good times, they'll often run for the hills when trouble hits. Only the people standing shoulder to shoulder with you in a crisis are truly your own. And lastly, give respect, absolutely. But if you overdo it and make someone your everything, you'll eventually lose their respect and end up insulted. It's all about balance. Now, while the teachings strongly advise avoiding petty squabbles and keeping that balance, they draw a very hard line when it comes to justice. You should absolutely sidestep unnecessary drama. But when your honor, your character, or your fundamental rights are under attack, you are absolutely obligated to stand up and fight back. This is such a powerful concept. Staying silent against unrighteousness only emboldens the bad actor. Think about it. If someone does you wrong and you just quietly tolerate it, they're going to think you're weak and they'll keep harming you and probably others too. By doing nothing, you effectively become a partner in their sin. It's your moral duty to oppose wrongdoing, not just to protect yourself, but to make sure society doesn't just completely descend into chaos. The text clearly reminds us that we can't just sit back on the couch waiting for some divine intervention to fix our problems. It views life as a literal battlefield. God might provide the wisdom, the inspiration, and the internal grit, but you are required to physically step up and fight your own battles. Honestly, the teachings imply that even the divine gets frustrated with someone who refuses to protect themselves. So, when you're out there fighting those battles, who do you think is most likely to stab you in the back? Well, surprisingly, the teachings note that betrayal often comes from right inside your own house. The most brutal conflicts don't usually happen between total strangers, they happen between the people closest to you. Why? Because outsiders don't know your weak spots. Only those intimately close to you know exactly where to strike to cause the absolute maximum amount of pain. And that leads us to our final pillar. Pillar 4, the unavoidable law of karma. We're wrapping up with what the text frames as the ultimate cosmic equalizer. It describes this absolutely flawless universal accounting system. Here's how it works. Step 1, you perform an action, good or bad. Step 2, the universe, acting like a perfectly hidden security camera, records it. Every single move is documented. And Step 3, the inevitable consequence arrives. Whether it's sudden salvation during a tough time because of a past good deed or punishment for a secret sin, the outcome is 100% unavoidable. To really drive this point home, the text uses this incredibly dark but striking parable. Two friends travel to the city and make an absolute fortune. On the journey back, one friend secretly poisons the other's food to steal his half of the money. The murderer goes home, lives like a king, and eventually has a son. But this son is constantly terribly sick, and the man ends up spending every single penny of his stolen wealth on massive medical bills. Finally, totally broke, the man asks his dying son why he couldn't ever get well. The son looks at him and says, "I am the friend you poisoned in the forest. I was born as your son just to drain every ounce of the wealth you stole from me. Now that the account is settled, my life ends." Wow, right? The inescapable reality here is that no matter how clever or sneaky you think you are, your actions are going to find you. This teaches us that righteous living isn't just about having good morals so you look like a good person to your neighbors. It is literally a matter of long-term self-preservation. You reap exactly what you sow. As we close out this explainer on these 30 life-changing teachings, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to really chew on. Take a hard look at the actions you're taking today. Are they building your true purpose, your personal swadharma, or are you just blindly following the herd? overly attached to things that aren't even yours, marching toward inevitable suffering. The choice and ultimately the karma is entirely yours.